Reynard chassis, you were worried about your parts supply chain. That situation was recently resolved when one of the team owners in the pit lane, Derek Walker, bought up the assets of Reynard North America and says he plans to continue to develop and even build Reynard chassis. 4 in the series right now, compared with 14 Lolas at this point.
Dario Franchitti looks really good here. His lap time at a 25.1 versus 25.3 and 4 for Tag and Tony Kanaan. So Dario Franchitti is absolutely on fire here.
Here's our current race summary. Franchitti, the only leader thus far, working lap number 28 of 250.
Nowhere near traffic yet, still about just over half a lap, or just less than half a lap from getting himself into traffic. Now Tagliani is still a good second. We saw him. Here's the battle for third and fourth. Still Kanaan and D'Amata, the roommates from Miami.
D'Amata comes into this weekend with a 20-point lead in the championship. That is a race victory worth of points. Looking out the back of Kanaan's car, a Honda-powered Lola. All of the cars on Bridgestone Potenza tires. And earlier this year at Milwaukee on the mile oval there, we saw a lot of rubber buildup. That is bits of rubber called marbles by the racers coming off the tires and building up like a snowdrift off the racing line, making it very treacherous out there. In an effort to avoid that sort of situation here, where we're on the same Bridgestone Potenza compounded tire, we have 2 jet dryers on hand to blow those marbles away should they develop.
That was the end of the back straight. Coming off turn 2 was where we saw Tony Kanaan spin yesterday, having just set that fastest lap. Both in Lolas. Kanaan has never tested this car. As he says, it is trial and error. You learn as you go. His engineer Ian Watt worked on 3 completely different racing cars this year with Tony Kanaan.
As a look at D'Amata, the man his teammate Christian Fittipaldi calls Shorty. He is jockey-sized, fits deep in the car, barely see over his steering wheel, but he is blindingly quick and brave as Dick Tracy.
And Bob, something that we found yesterday, when it got this hot, these cars went very loose. D'Amata did, Carpentier did, Vassar did. We had pictures of them power sliding off turns 3 and 4. That's okay to hang on in qualifying, but we're going to keep a real close eye whether these cars begin to go loose in this heat. And Jourdain, who is not running at the front, has been on the radio, said he's beginning to lose a bit of power and beginning to get loose.
D'Amata scored his first career victory here 2 years ago at Chicago Motor Speedway. And that has been the island of success in an ocean of misery for him here. In 2001, he was 19th. Back in 1999, in the first race here, he was 14th out of the points. We'll take a quick break. Final adjustments before the all-important pit stops happen. They are about 30 laps away. We'll be back.
The Toyota Spotlight. Here's Derek Daly.
For the first time ever here in Chicago, Champ cars are going to use a 2-stage pit lane speed limiter. Now I'll show you how it's operated. These are multitask switches, so a driver has an option as to how he activates these speed limiters. PLC, pit lane cruise, when Cristiano D'Amata or Fittipaldi activates this, they do the normal 55 miles an hour. Now, when you're allowed to go to the second stage, which is 85 miles an hour, they've elected to go to the back of the wheel and flick this little lever here. Then, when at the end of turn 2, they simply flick it again and go up to full racing speed. I guarantee you, with all these switches to flick during pit stops, you will see somebody forget the 85 miles an hour limit, and you'll see people getting penalties.
That's a good point, Derek. As soon as we heard about that two-stage speed limiter, pushing one button to get different speeds, everyone wondered, what if you forget how many times you pushed it?
And remember, one of the reasons they brought this in, at Motegi, it was 50 miles an hour all the way around turn 2. Under green flag situations, you could lose almost 2 laps. So they want to bring the speed up gradually so that you don't lose too much time under green flag pit stops.
Those pictures are being brought to you live from the Honda Skycam high above Chicago Motor Speedway, and it gave you a graphic idea of just how narrow this racetrack is. The paperclip, they call it. Dario Franchitti working lap number 44. He will pit at lap 68, and he has got slower traffic ahead.
But I'll tell you what, Dario Franchitti just looks mighty. He is in total control here. I want to say great to see him back. He won a race last year, but remember Dario Franchitti and Montoya a couple of years ago? That was one of the real heydays of racing, of Champ Car racing, when the two of them dueled it all season long for the championship.
Jan Bikas.
In regards to Dario Franchitti, you've been talking about how dominant he looks, Derek, but remember, this is the first time in the race that he's not been in clean air. And some of the drivers have been complaining that they can get their car perfect in clean air, but they have major problems, including his teammate, Paul Tracy, when he gets behind other cars. So the real test for Team Green today is going to be right now. How does that car work in dirty air? And also, you talk about 85 miles an hour for a pit speed. Last year, they could only do 86 to 89 with no speed limiter. So they really haven't slowed them down all that much.
That's a great point, Jan, on the downforce levels these cars carry when they get into traffic, because it's like Milwaukee, but unlike last year when they had bigger wings and more downforce, this year they just don't have the type of grip.
And getting to the point Jan was making about how much they haven't slowed the cars down here at Chicago, this is not really the track that the two-stage pit lane speed limiter was designed for. It's designed for the big super speedways, places like Rockingham, England, and the Euro Speedway Lausitz in Germany, where we're racing September. There, the pit exits are very, very fast, and that 85-mile-an-hour pit lane speed limiter will make things much safer. Now, just ahead of race leader Dario Franchitti is Christian Fittipaldi. Remember, he pitted. Only he and the man ahead of him in the race order right now, Michel Jourdain Jr., have stopped. Every other car on the racetrack will come into pit, probably on lap 68. Then Jourdain and Fittipaldi will make hay. Now, one of the players, Forsyth Reynards, is in the pit. That's Patrick Carpentier pitting out of sequence.
So he pits on lap 48. Lap 46 was the first time you could possibly pit and still do a minimum or a maximum of 68 all the way down to do it on 3 pit stops. Jan?
And he has been having some problems. If you hear the engine, it is not running smoothly. This is not just an early pit stop. The car has not been running well. Yeah, that is not on all 8 cylinders, so they were hoping for better. I think he'll be here again soon.
That flatulent sound.
Also, to give you an idea on lap times, Jan, you're absolutely right. Dario Franchitti last lap 25.7. Tag is doing 25.4. He's beginning to close it in as Dario still continues to follow Christian Fittipaldi. There they are, the leader and the last place car, because he made an early pit stop, so he took himself out of sequence, did Christian Fittipaldi.
And that is
There's Tag. There he is.
Not a slow car, particularly as Christian Fittipaldi. Consider this entire field qualified within 89 hundredths of a second of one another. Carpentier back in. This is bad news for the Canadian.
It's over. It looks like a broken header from what we could hear as he left the pit lane. I don't think you're going to see him out again.
That's a tough break. There's a guy with a smile constantly on his face, no matter what's going on. Patrick Carpentier is having a great time as a racing driver. He may not be smiling right now. There's his teammate, Alex Tagliani, currently in second place. See how the gap has come down to the race leader, Ralph Shaheen.
Well, you know, being a big-time race car driver celebrity like Alex Tagliani can be a lot of fun at times, Bob, but sometimes it makes it difficult to do the average daily things like you and I. Well, at least like me in your case, Bob. But when it comes to Alex Tagliani, he had a little bit of a problem here recently. Went into the supermarket, got all of his goods together, pushed his card up to the cash register, and promptly tried to pay with his credit card. Well, he had plenty of credit, but the cashier thought this crazy guy had stolen Alex Tagliani's credit card. She promptly called her manager over, and Alex Alex had to be interrogated to prove he truly was the kart superstar.
It's kind of like the apocryphal story about the great Sterling Moss, one of the greatest racing drivers of all time, enormously popular in his native England, where he is now Sir Sterling Moss. He was once pulled over by a bobby who said, "You are going so quickly. Who do you think you are, Sterling Moss?"
Famous story in England. Yeah. Tagliani now continues to try and run down Dario. This is a golden opportunity. He has to take this opportunity, get really good laps, and close in on Dario, as long as Dario is still behind Christian Fittipaldi.
Okay, Alex, you're doing a real nice job there. Just stay close to Dario. Doing great.
He blew an engine on Saturday, so they had a major engine change, and then was surprised everybody with a great run in qualifying, leapt right to the top of the charts until Dario just edged him out. There's the interval from our Honda Helicam. Dario right side of your screen, they're both blue, but Dario got that darker blue metallic paint job.
Look at all that traffic ahead of them. Townsend Bell, Mario Dominguez, Michel Jourdain, and then Christian Fittipaldi, followed by the race leader Dario Franchitti. He in turn followed by Alex Tagliani.
And the difficulty here, Bob, is Christian is not really visually holding up Dario, but there could be dirty air all the way back there, and Dario has to think about that. And as difficult as it is to close up on him, I mean, look at the line of cars ahead of him. It's difficult for someone like Christian to move aside, because remember, he's out of sequence on the pit stops, so he doesn't want to get a lap down.
And compounding that is, suppose you do come up on somebody's rear wing, where are you going to go? The racing line is very narrow here. There's Fittipaldi.
Right behind Jourdain, the other man who made that early pit stop. They made the pit stops on lap 5 and lap 8. I was surprised Jourdain came in so early. Scott Remke does like to pull those boys out of sequence.
And it's official now. Patrick Carpentier is climbing out of his car in the Forsyth pits. He becomes the third driver out of the race after Kenny Brack and Jimmy Vasser.
That is so disappointing for a driver, because there's nothing you can do. You didn't make a mistake. The crew didn't make a mistake. Something mechanical just lets go, a vibration, a crack, something loose, and then you're just done.
Well, at least he can get to the shade earlier. Jan Bikus.
And we'll let him get his earplugs out. And Patrick, certainly it sounds engine related, but how are the track conditions?
Yeah, the track conditions were okay. It's pretty slippery with the weather the way it is. It's very difficult to pass. But from the start of the race, the engine was, the valve was knocking in the piston or something, and it just went down from there, and now we stopped.
Now you have the same setup as your teammate Tagliani. Do you think your car was good enough now for him to go on and try and win this race?
I think the car was okay. I think it was in the middle of the corners. I seemed to be catching Michael, but he would pull away on the straight. So I think the car is not too bad.
All right, get out of the heat. Thank you.
Thanks.
Third DNF of the season for Patrick Carpentier. Yes, Eddie always has a smile. That was a bit of a rueful version there. Second in this race a year ago.
And there's his teammate. It is a Ford engine in those players' cars run by Jerry Forsyth. They're chasing a Honda. They're trying to hold off three Toyotas. Canan, Tomatas, Junqueira. Then there's Fernandez, Tracy, Michael Andretti, who has just reported his car is now beginning to get loose. So if he gets loose, he's trying to get to lap 68 before he pits. Here is Michael.
8.5 to the lead.
He's got Paul Tracy just ahead of him. The gap about half a second. Leader in virtually every statistical category among active drivers in the Kart FedEx Championship Series, including